Some nights choosing a pizza chain feels less like dinner and more like a gamble. There are so many names, so many promises, so many boxes stacked behind warm counters that all seem to say the same thing. You walk in hopeful. You walk out with that familiar worry. Did I just waste another $20 on a crust that tastes like yesterday? Popularity doesn't protect you anymore. A big brand no longer guarantees a good slice, and the difference between a satisfying meal and a disappointing one can be as random as pulling a number out of a lottery drum. You shouldn't have to guess. You shouldn't have to hope the sauce is balanced today or that the toppings weren't stretched into thin confetti to save a little cost. So we're stepping in. In this video, we're cutting through the noise and ranking 10 major US pizza chains from the worst to the ones truly worth your appetite. If you've ever felt let down by a box of promise, this list will make your next choice a whole lot easier. To make this video easier to follow, we've divided the ranking into 3 clear tiers. The chains that slipped so far they're not worth your money, the ones that sit safely in the middle, and the few that still deliver real satisfaction. Breaking it down this way keeps the journey simple, steady, and honest, so you'll know exactly why each name lands where it does. Every tier reflects patterns in taste, consistency, value, and real customer experience across the country. Without further ado, let's see which is the worst pizza chain in the United States. On Papa Murphy's. You bring the box home expecting dinner, not a project. But Papa Murphy's asks you to do the part every customer tries to avoid: the cooking. It sounds harmless on paper. Take it home, slide it into the oven, enjoy the aroma spreading through the house. Yet the moment you peel back that plastic, a different truth settles in. The dough is cold, the cheese already sweating, the sauce gathered in uneven patches along the edge. It's not a meal. It's an assignment at the end of a long day. Most people choose pizza because they want certainty. They want something warm, ready, predictable, a break from the work of chopping, stirring, timing, and cleaning. Papa Murphy's turns that entire idea upside down. And the worst part isn't the effort, it's the inconsistency. Because once the final step leaves the store and lands in your kitchen, everything becomes a gamble. Your oven runs a little hot. Your pan traps more heat than theirs. You check the crust too early or too late. 1 minute too long and the edge turns brittle. 2 minutes too short and the center stays doughy. You don't just buy a pizza here, you accept responsibility for its success or its failure. Plenty of chains survive on convenience alone. This one depends on trust. And the truth is that trust breaks too easily. Reviewers across the country echo the same story: the idea is charming until you taste the result. One customer gets a beautifully browned, crisp bottom. Another opens the same product and ends up scraping underbaked dough off foil. No amount of polite branding can mask the fact that the last most important step happens without the supervision of anyone trained to do it. But the experience goes deeper than texture. It hits the rhythm of your evening. Imagine a parent pulling into the parking lot after work, thinking they've secured a simple win for the night. They grab the pizza drive home with a car full of hungry children and then realize they're 20 minutes, sometimes 30 from eating. The oven needs time. The pizza needs space. The kids need patience. And that moment when the exhaustion meets the delay is where disappointment grows sharpest. Even the chain's strengths can't fully save it. The toppings are generous, the price is friendly, and the concept does appeal to families who enjoy baking together. But a national brand has to stand on repeatable results, not good intentions. And when a chain lands near the bottom of major satisfaction lists, it's rarely because people dislike the flavor on a perfect day. It's because they can't rely on perfection showing up in the first place. Papa Murphy's falls into this ranking not because it's offensive, but because it's unreliable. No matter how well-meaning the idea is, no matter how fresh the ingredients might be, the final product depends on variables far beyond the store's control. And when customers spend money, they expect a result, not a lesson in home baking. If this feels like a rough beginning, the next chain proves that low price doesn't always mean a good deal. 2 Little Caesars. You walk into Little Caesars for one reason: the price. And for a moment, that's enough. The box is warm, the deal feels unbeatable, and the promise is simple: fast, cheap, done. In a world where dinner keeps getting more expensive, that promise matters. But the moment you lift the first slice, reality settles in. The cheese slides a little too easily. The bend is deeper than it should be. The aroma is loud but strangely shallow, as if the ingredients are performing instead of blending. Still, compared to Papa Murphy's, Little Caesars does offer one real strength. At least the food is ready the second you walk out the door. No waiting, no baking, no chance of messing up your own dinner. It removes the anxiety of timing, temperature, and technique. Whatever you get, good or bad, is the store's responsibility, not yours. And on some nights, convenience alone feels like mercy. But that alone can't lift it higher, because the heart of the problem isn't readiness. It's what happens after the first 2 bites, when the hunger settles but the flavor doesn't rise to meet it. The sauce leans sweet, sometimes sharply so. The crust often tastes steamed, as if it never had a true chance to brown. The cheese forms a unified sheet instead of melting into the dough. You get warmth and bulk, but you rarely get pleasure. You finish the meal full yet not fulfilled, as if the pizza answered your stomach but ignored your taste. The deeper you go, the more the weaknesses show themselves. The crust varies wildly from store to store, soft and floppy, one day stiff and dense the next. The pepperoni can be generous or scattered like an afterthought. The heat sometimes feels trapped on the surface rather than baked through the core. It's pizza engineered for speed, not shaped for satisfaction. And when a product prioritizes volume over care, the cracks always show up in the simplest places: the bite, the chew, the aftertaste. Little Caesars succeeds on quantity but struggles on character. It fills space but rarely leaves an impression. You can eat an entire slice and still feel like something is missing, even if you can't put a name to it. That's the subtle disappointment most people don't talk about. Not that the pizza is terrible, but that it barely tries to be more than acceptable for the price. People forgive a lot when money is tight. They forgive the oil pooling at the fold, the oddly sweet red sauce, the crust that feels the same whether fresh or reheated. They forgive it because the deal is good. But forgiveness has a limit, especially when dinner is meant to offer a moment of comfort in a day that didn't give many. And that is why Little Caesars stays near the bottom. It wins your wallet, but too often loses your appetite, a trade-off that becomes more worrying each year. 3 Domino's Pizza. Everyone knows Domino's. The logo, the tracker, the late-night delivery that somehow always shows up, even when everything else in town is closing, it's familiar in a way few chains ever become. That familiarity alone says something important. Domino's knows how to appeal to people. It knows how to make ordering easy, how to remove friction, how to be the dependable answer when hunger hits and time is short. Compared to Papa Murphy's, it wins instantly by giving you a finished meal. Compared to Little Caesars, it offers better stability, better packaging, better delivery, and far stronger digital convenience. In the world of speed and structure, Domino's is the master. For a moment, that mastery feels impressive. The box arrives hot. The aroma is seasoned, bold, almost theatrical. Everything looks tightly assembled, symmetrical toppings, evenly melted cheese, clean edges on the crust. It gives off the energy of a chain that knows exactly what it's doing, and in many ways it does. Domino's has refined its process so thoroughly that the product moves from prep to oven to doorstep with the precision of a factory line. You feel it the moment you lift the lid. But once the first bite settles, the cracks begin to show. The crust has a manufactured firmness, like it was shaped for consistency rather than pleasure. The cheese melts uniformly, but it carries a muted, almost flat profile that never quite opens up. The sauce leans into a sweetness that feels engineered instead of cooked, a flavor that lingers in a way you don't fully enjoy but can't ignore. It's pizza that performs well on paper, but feels hollow on the palate. Then comes the sameness. No matter the city, no matter the store. Domino's pizza tastes almost exactly alike, not in a comforting way, but in a way that reveals how much the system does and how little the cook's influence. Every step is measured, timed, automated, and standardized. That sounds like a strength until you realize what gets lost along the way. Texture, spontaneity, depth, the tiny imperfections that make pizza feel alive instead of assembled. Efficiency becomes the chain's calling card and also its quiet downfall. It's not that Domino's is bad, it's that it never reaches for anything beyond predictable. You finish a slice and feel full but not impressed. You eat another and still wait for a spark that doesn't come. It satisfies the stomach but rarely stirs a memory. And that's the subtle disappointment many people struggle to name. You relied on the brand it delivered reliably, yet the experience feels forgettable the moment the box closes. This is the trade-off that comes with favoring system over soul. When every step is designed to eliminate variation, the food loses the character that variation brings. Speed improves, prices stay manageable, mistakes shrink. But so does flavor identity. Domino's becomes the safe choice, the convenient choice, the practical choice, but not the choice you reach for when you truly want pizza. And that's why it closes out the bottom tier. Familiar, dependable, functional, yet missing the heart that should anchor every slice. Now let's move into the second tier, the chains that are better, decent, even comforting at times, but still not strong enough to stand among the best. 4 Papa John's. Interestingly, we open this second cluster with another Papa chain, But unlike Murphy's, this one is unmistakably an upgrade. Papa John's carries a story that once felt aspirational, a brand built around the idea of better ingredients, better care, better balance. And on many nights, you can still feel that intention. The boxes arrive clean and sturdy. The aroma hits the moment you lift the lid. The service, especially in well-run stores, is friendly, quick, and surprisingly attentive for a national chain. There's a sense of pride woven into its identity, the kind that made people believe they were choosing a slightly more polished option in a crowded field. And then the anchor fact speaks: despite being tied for the highest score in ACSI's National Pizza Satisfaction, the real-world perception is far more uneven. Some pies taste rich and comforting, others feel strangely heavy dough-forward or muted in flavor. It's not failure, it's fluctuation. And fluctuation is what keeps Papa John's from climbing any higher. The truth is, the chain sits in a tight, self-imposed box. It's not bad enough to fall into the bottom cluster, but not bold enough to push into the top tier. Everything about it feels constrained, like a talented person who never leaves their comfort zone. Papa John's stays safely within the boundary of what it knows how to deliver. It aims for premium, but rarely risks anything that would redefine its flavor. The crust is familiar, predictable. The cheese is generous, but rarely expressive. The sauce carries echoes of the past, occasionally powerful, occasionally imbalanced, as if the recipe hasn't fully adjusted to what modern customers crave. Part of this comes from the brand's identity. When you promise better ingredients, you lock yourself into a narrative that's difficult to evolve. Any significant change risks upsetting loyalists. Any bold new direction risks contradicting the slogan itself. So Papa John's chooses the safest path: maintain the formula, avoid extremes, stay recognizable. The result is a pizza that's pleasant, serviceable, sometimes even very good, but almost never surprising. It lacks the edge or personality that could propel it into the higher ranks. And this is why the chain remains in the middle. It has the story, it has the structure, it has the service, but it doesn't have the daring needed to compete with the strongest players. You finish a slice feeling satisfied enough, yet rarely excited. It answers hunger, but seldom stirs curiosity. Honestly, those strengths, while real, are still not enough to pull it any higher. Papa John's is a steady hand in a world of inconsistent chains, but steadiness alone doesn't earn a place among the greats. Now let's move to the next chain, one that outperforms Papa John's in reliability and flavor clarity, yet still lacks the spark that separates good from unforgettable. 5 Pizza Hut. There's something about Pizza Hut that immediately pulls you back the red roof, the pan sizzling in memory, the feeling of childhood dinners, where the crust tasted like a small celebration. That nostalgia still lingers even after all these years, and it's the first thing you feel when you open the box today. The aroma is familiar, the look is reassuring, the signature pan crust still carries that gentle sheen that once made it the king of comfort pizza in America. And to be fair, Pizza Hut still holds a strength. Many chains can only admire it manages to keep its standards steady across thousands of locations. In a landscape full of wildly inconsistent slices, Pizza Hut rarely drops below its baseline. Maintaining that kind of stability on such a massive scale is incredibly difficult. Getting the dough right, the melt, right the bake, right the timing right, all while training different crews, running different ovens, and dealing with different store pressures, that takes discipline. And it's exactly this reliability that lifts Pizza Hut to the middle of this ranking. You rarely get a terrible pie here. When the craving hits and you need something known, something steady, something that won't surprise you in the wrong way, Pizza Hut is still one of the safest bets. But that is also where the ceiling appears. Pizza Hut can hold the line, but it can't break past it. The marketing still paints it as a legacy name, a place with flavor worth remembering, a slice with heritage. Yet the reality doesn't rise to match that promise anymore. The crust is softer than it used to be, the cheese is milder, the sauce feels gentler, and the overall bite leans more toward comfort than excitement. It's competent but rarely stirring. You feel the nostalgia more than the flavor. And this mismatch isn't just something critics talk about, customers themselves say it plainly. One reviewer summed it up with a sentence that captures the brand's modern struggle. "It's good, it's fine, but it's not the Pizza Hut I remember." Another wrote something softer but equally revealing: "I order it when I don't want disappointment, but I never expect to be impressed." These voices explain why Pizza Hut can't move out of the middle tier. People like it. People trust it. But very few crave it. It's not a fall from grace, it's a gentle slide into safety. When a chain holds onto its legacy, too tightly smoothing every edge, softening every bold note, it risks losing the spark that made it special. Pizza Hut has become the pizza equivalent of comfort television. Steady, familiar, predictable, quietly pleasant, but almost never thrilling. And honestly, I still eat there. It's good in that specific way where you walk in with no expectations at all. You know exactly what you'll get, and sometimes on the kind of day where you don't need surprises, that's perfectly enough. 6. Jets Pizza. Jets Pizza doesn't win people over with loud ads or clever slogans. It wins them over with a style of thick-edged, square-cut promise that tells you instantly this isn't just another delivery chain. Detroit style is its whole identity, and Jets leans into it with confidence. The corners caramelize into a crispy crown, the center stays airy and light, and the first lift of a slice already gives you that slow, stretchy pull that says the dough was handled with care. It's the kind of pizza that stands out before you even taste it. And to Jet's credit, maintaining a style, this bold is not simple. You can feel the effort in the pan, the oiling, the proofing, the crisping, the intentional weight of each slice. Among all the chains in this list, Jet's is one of the very few with a flavor structure that can't be mistaken for anything else. That identity alone pushes it comfortably above the middle. Chains like Papa John's and Pizza Hut rely on familiarity. Jet's relies on character. And character is harder to build than nostalgia. The numbers support that reality. Jet's ranks high on Yelp's national list and still earns a place in Newsweek's top 10 proof that people respect what it brings to the table. When a store executes the style correctly, the result is rich, textural, indulgent in the best way. You feel the contrast in every bite, the crisp shell, the soft interior, the cheese that melts into the edges instead of sitting on top. For many people, it's the closest thing to artisan you can get from a mainstream chain. But that same identity is also where the trouble appears. Jet's depends on technique more than most. Get the proofing wrong and the dough loses its lift. Miss the timing and the crust turns dense. Skimp on the oil and the signature edge loses its caramelized bite. Add too much and the entire pizza becomes heavy and slick. It's a style that rewards precision and punishes shortcuts, and unfortunately, shortcuts are common in national operations. That's why Jet's sits right here firmly in the upper middle. Not because it lacks potential, but because the distance between a good Jet's pizza and a mediocre one can be surprisingly wide. One location gives you something glorious, something people rave about. Another hands you a box that leaves you wondering where the praise came from. You try to imagine the best version of the pizza, even when the one in your hands isn't it. And yet, even with that unevenness, Jet's still earns admiration. It brings something different, and in a market full of sameness that matters. But difference alone can't carry it into the top tier. To rise higher, a chain needs the kind of reliability that makes excellence feel guaranteed, not optional. Jet's shows how powerful a strong identity can be, and how fragile it becomes when execution can't keep pace with ambition. 7. Blaze Pizza. Now, the king of the normal rank belongs to Blaze Pizza. And truthfully, it has every potential to sit higher, maybe even much higher, if not for a few problems that keep dragging it back to the middle. Blaze is the kind of chain that makes you believe pizza can be modern, fresh, light, and still exciting. Walk through the doors and the energy hits you immediately. Bright counters, bowls of colorful toppings, dough stretched right in front of you, flames rising behind a glass wall. It feels like pizza redesigned for this decade, not inherited from the last one. And the strengths, as I just said, are undeniable. Blaze gives you something most chains can't: the ability to build a pizza that actually feels like yours. You choose the base, the toppings, the flavor path. The ovens fire hot and fast, blistering the crust into a thin, crackly sheet with scattered char that looks more artisan than industrial. The vegetables stay vivid. The cheese melts cleanly. For a moment, you feel like you've stepped outside the typical fast food box, but the weakness arrives just as quickly. Blaze's biggest flaw is the one that defines its ranking: instability. The concept is strong, but the execution is fragile. Too fragile. High-heat ovens cook beautifully, but they also burn easily. One distracted moment, one extra second, and the clean char becomes a bitter edge. Add too many toppings and the center collapses into a wet spot that never crisps. Add too few and the whole pizza tastes empty and dry. Blaze is a chain where a 5-second difference can decide whether your dinner is crisp perfection or a patchwork of mistakes. And this isn't rare. Customers often walk in expecting freshness and walk out questioning why their pizza feels rushed, uneven, or oddly muted. Someone builds a beautiful combination spinach tomatoes, Mozzarella garlic, only to receive a pie where the outer ring is burnt and the middle droops like warm paper. The disappointment hits hard because Blaze invites you to participate in the creation. You invest in the idea, you picture the final result. So when the store fails to execute, the failure feels like it reaches back at you, not just them. Blaze also struggles with ingredient balance. Staff enthusiasm varies wildly. Some locations pile toppings generously, others sprinkle them like they're rationing food for winter. And that inconsistency shows in every bite. One meal tastes bright, fresh, and well-seasoned. The next feels like the kitchen simply went through the motions. In a chain built on personalization, the margin for error is painfully small. This is what keeps Blaze stuck here at the top of the middle tier, brilliant in concept, charismatic in presentation, admirable in freshness, but too delicate to rely on. When everything goes right, Blaze shines in ways most fast casual chains never reach. But when the timing slips or the dough proofs poorly or the toppings aren't balanced, the entire promise falls apart. Blaze proves how innovation can excite customers and how quickly that excitement fades when consistency can't keep up. Now let's step into the final tier where the chains don't just show potential, they deliver it with confidence, reliability, and real flavor identity. 8. Marco's Pizza. Marco's Pizza is the kind of chain you try without expecting much, maybe because the bigger names were too busy, maybe because it happened to be close by. And then the first bite stops you. It's the moment you realize this isn't just another national chain, following the same old playbook. Marco's has a way of surprising people gently without theatrics, without gimmicks. It wins you over through craft, not noise. The difference appears right away in the structure of the slice. The underside has a firm golden base that supports the weight of the toppings, instead of sagging under it. The sauce leans savory rather than sugary, carrying a depth that tastes like someone actually cared about seasoning. The toppings don't sit awkwardly on top. They nestle into the cheese, melting into a single layer instead of floating like a separate component. Everything comes together in a way that feels intentional, not rushed. And in a country full of pizza chains that rely on nostalgia commercials and outlandish promotions, Marco's manages something much harder. It earns respect purely from flavor and balance. That's part of why it ranked number 2 in Newsweek's national poll, a result that surprises people until they actually try it. Then it makes perfect sense. The chain doesn't pretend to reinvent pizza. It just tries to make it well, night after night, store after store. This steady competence is what lifts Marco's above the entire middle tier. Chains like Pizza Hut hold the line. Jets brings identity but struggles with execution. Blaze brings freshness but cracks under its own fragility. Marco's sits above all of them because the experience is consistently rewarding, not just conceptually interesting. You don't walk away thinking about what it wanted to be. You walk away appreciating what it is. That doesn't mean it's flawless. Marco's isn't dramatic enough to take the top spot, and it isn't widespread enough to dominate the national conversation. Some locations still slip a pie that's a touch too oily a crust, slightly underbaked, a salt profile that leans a bit heavy. These aren't failures, just reminders that Marco's is still a growing chain learning to sharpen its systems. What holds it back isn't a glaring weakness, but the absence of that extra layer of refinement that marks the truly elite. Yet, even with those limitations, Marco's delivers something many chains never achieve: a sense of care you can actually taste. This is pizza made with a little more attention, a little more respect for the fundamentals. And that's why so many customers discover Marco's by accident and stay with it on purpose. They try it once, shrug, and then halfway through the meal find themselves saying, why haven't I been ordering this all along? It's a quiet revelation, but a lasting one. Marco's shows how far a brand can climb just by respecting flavor, not innovation for the sake of novelty, not nostalgia for the sake of comfort, but simple, well-executed pizza that rewards the diner instead of disappointing them. 9 Modi Pizza. Next, our runner-up, MOD. Pizza carries the same spirit that makes Marco's so rewarding: care balance and real flavor, but builds it into something brighter, livelier, and more expressive. If Marco's is the quiet overachiever, MOD is the confident one who walks into the room and instantly lifts the energy. That's the simplest way to understand why it ranks second on this list. It takes the fundamentals Marco excels at and wraps them in a vibe that feels genuinely fun. The moment you step inside a MOD location, the difference is immediate. It doesn't feel like a chain trying to imitate an artisan shop. It feels like a place built around people, their moods, their choices, their pace. The line moves fast but not rushed. Staff talk to you, not at you. The toppings are displayed like a painter's palette: roasted garlic, fresh basil tangy sauces, vegetables still carrying their natural color. There's a sense of freedom woven into the process. You build what you want and Mod supports that choice without fuss. Then comes the crust thin, fire-kissed, and crisp enough to fold without breaking. It carries the toppings without collapsing, and picks up just enough char from the oven to feel handcrafted. The flavors build in layers rather than shouting over one another. Each bite feels intentional, even when you've piled on ingredients that technically shouldn't go together. Mod has a talent for turning chaos into cohesion, and that alone sets it apart. What truly elevates MOD above Marco's, however, is the atmosphere. Marco's delivers comfort. MOD delivers personality. There's warmth in the environment, but it's not sentimental. It's active, upbeat, and strangely communal. Customers lean over the counter, choosing toppings. Staff joke lightly while assembling pies and tables, filled with people who look like they stopped in because the place simply felt inviting. MOD transforms a quick meal into a small, pleasant moment of human connection, and few chains in any category manage that. Of course, MOD isn't flawless. Like all build-your-own systems, it can suffer from imbalance. Too many toppings create muddiness, too few make the pizza feel empty, and a slight misstep in oven timing can shift the entire texture. But even with those imperfections, MOD still feels more consistent in spirit than many chains feel in flavor. Its highs are so confidently delivered: crisp crust, bright toppings, fast service, vibrant energy, that the occasional misfire doesn't cost it the loyalty of its customers. MOD's real magic is how it makes customization feel joyful rather than burdensome. You don't build your own pizza because you're trying to fix a restaurant's flaws. You build it because the process is genuinely enjoyable. And when you sit down with your finished pie, there's a distinct sense that it reflects your taste rather than a factory template. That's why MOD stands here just one step below the top spot. It carries Marco's heart, but adds color charm and a pulse that makes the entire experience feel lighter and more alive. 10 Mountain Mikes. Finally, the throne belongs to prepare yourself. Mountain Mikes. It isn't just good, it's the kind of good that hits you out of nowhere and makes you blink twice. Like, why has nobody been talking about this? Because this chain doesn't brag. It doesn't scream for attention. It just walks into the lineup calm and confident and quietly outperforms everybody else on the table. And the moment you take that first bite, that golden, crispy-edged cup and char pepperoni bite, you suddenly understand why it owns the #1 spot. This is pizza with presence. Real presence. The crust isn't some floppy afterthought. It has that steady, toasted strength that holds every topping, without bending like a soggy paper plate. You feel the weight of it in your hand, but it's not heavy. It's reassuring, like a slice that knows exactly who it is. Then comes the cheese, thick and generous, melting right into the sauce instead of sitting on top, like a disconnected layer. And that sauce, man, it's got a grown-up balance: savory first, a little brightness, after none of that sugary kick so many chains hide behind. But the real crown jewel, the pepperoni cups, golden, curled, sizzling around the edges like they've been flexing in the oven. You bite into one of those and it pops with flavor: salty, smoky, a little crispy, a little juicy, the perfect hit of this is it satisfaction. It's the kind of topping that instantly separates a good chain from a great chain, and Mountain Mike serves them like it's their signature handshake. What pushes this chain to the top isn't just taste, it's consistency. Mountain Mike's isn't playing the good one day May the next game. Across most locations, the product feels steady, intentional, and well built. No gimmicks, no shortcuts. Just pizza made with respect. And respect is rare in national chains. Sure, the price runs a little higher. And yeah, an older franchise might move slower during peak hours, but honestly, when the pizza delivers at this level, those tiny flaws fade into the background. You get what you pay for, and here you're paying for flavor crunch balance and a slice that feels like someone actually cared how it turned out. Picture this: a family grabbing Mountain Mike's for a casual Friday night, expecting just another chain pie. They open the box, see that carpet of pepperoni cups, smell that toasted crust, and suddenly everyone leans in. The first bite drops the room into a satisfied silence, the good kind. The kind where people look at each other like this is legit. There's no debate, no confusion, no adjusting expectations. Just clean, honest enjoyment. Mountain Mike's doesn't rely on nostalgia. It doesn't rely on marketing. It relies on the oldest rule in the book: make good pizza every time. That's why it lifts the entire top tier on its shoulders. That's why it stands above Marco's and MOD. And that's why it's the #1 chain you absolutely have to try. Not someday, not eventually, but the next time you even think about ordering pizza. In the end, this whole journey isn't just about ranking chains. It's about reminding ourselves that pizza is still one of the few foods that can spark joy the moment the box opens. And sometimes all it takes is a little courage to step outside the familiar logos, to try a new slice, to give a different crust a chance. Because when we dare to choose better, the people behind these kitchens feel it. Our choices push owners to be bolder, bakers to be prouder, and every oven to work a little harder the next day. So the next time you're standing there scrolling through pizza places, don't settle out of habit. Dare yourself to try the one you've never picked. Who knows, the best slice of your month might be waiting in a shop you've overlooked 100 times. Go find your new favorite pizza. The oven's already hot.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.